The professional track and field season is about to come to an end, and that is something I find very interesting, because so many people who I talk to outside of the track and field community didn't even know we really had one. Don't get me wrong, they know about the Olympics, they just didn't know that track and field actually happens beyond that, which is probably why they're so excited to tune in when it shows up at the games. And what we just witnessed in Paris is an Olympics for the ages. Just going off of memory, Noah Lyles won the 100 by 5,000ths of a second. And then Julian Alfred brought the first Olympic medal of any color back home to St. Lucia. She actually brought 2. Germany, of all countries, got dangerously close to winning the women's 4x1 relay. But of course, Sha'Carri Richardson shut that down. And you can't ignore what Quincy Hall pulled off in the 400, because that had to go down as one of the gutsiest performances we've ever seen at the Olympics. And I ain't just talking about track and field. I could keep on going, but I think you get the picture. People love to watch Olympic track and field, and that is not up for debate. But when the games are over, nobody's paying attention to anything else that happens on the track, at least not for the next 4 years, which is a very big problem if you're an athlete. If you're actually a fan of the sport, you've probably seen Noah Lyles do a few interviews. He's done them with Jimmy Fallon, he went live with Kelly Clarkson, and he even went on the Nightcap podcast with Shannon Sharp and Chad Johnson. No matter which show he is on, he ends up saying a version of the same thing. The same thing he told Brandon Marshall on the Paper Route podcast over a year ago. That track and field athletes are not paid attention to. We can see that one of 2 ways. One, that people don't pay attention to the sport and the athletes. And the other is that those athletes quite literally don't get paid much. Of course, there's room for debate about how much he deserves to get paid, because Noah Lyles specifically is the fastest man in the world. And you earn that title when you win gold medals at the World Championships and at the Olympics. He did both back to back. It is what it is. Whether you like it or not, him having the crown in the men's 100-meter dash, the most popular event, at least to the casual track fan, that we have in the sport, put them at the top of the food chain. So when he says the sport has a problem, I am inclined to believe him, and it goes way bigger than Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, or anybody else. Because track and field is an Olympic sport. I admit that. It's just way more than that, which is the real reason why people love it so much when the games go off. So I apologize because this video is a little bit different, because I actually care about the sport as well as the athletes who do it, at every single level, including the professional one. And even if you don't care enough to acknowledge it, the only way that you can have success at the Olympic level is if you take the sport seriously far beyond that. Because any athlete who brought a medal of any color back home from the games is well aware that that meet was just one on the calendar, because they've had a whole bunch this year and a whole lot more in the years leading up to it. And in almost every single case, those races were contested as a professional. So the track and field community needs to deal with the harsh reality that this sport is not really an Olympic sport. And I'll explain why. It's actually way more than that. But in the world we're living in right now, the sports community doesn't really pay attention to the sport unless it's the games. And if we don't fix it soon, the sport may not survive, because you don't want to be just an Olympic sport. We saw that one in Paris as well. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCArecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. Allow me to go over the facts the way that I understand them, because there is a lot of confusion about what it really means to be an Olympic sport anyway. I see the Olympic sports in 3 different categories. Group 1 Olympic sports are actually just professional sports, and everybody knows it. Sports like soccer and basketball exist at the professional level. People watch those sports on television and pay good money in order to do it, year in and year out. All the way back in 1992, the NBA chose for the first time to send professional basketball players from their league to compete in the Olympics. That means up until that point, they were just sending college kids over there to play at the games. And the only reason they were inspired to do it is because the college kids started losing, and America had had enough of it. Because we had better basketball players, they were just playing at the pro level. So they went out and assembled the Dream Team, with Michael Jordan and a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. And of course, that team won the gold. But none of those players would ever trade their NBA success for their Olympic success. It's a no contest. They'd rather be in the NBA. And for the most part, that still hasn't changed for Olympic basketball today. The players who America sends, as well as some of the best players in the world for other countries, compete in the NBA. And they would not trade that success just for Olympic success. To be clear, Group 1 sports are still entertaining to watch at the Olympics. But if all the fans of that sport actually know, they can watch high-level competition beyond the Olympics for the most part whenever they want. And Group 2 Olympic sports are the polar opposite of what I just described. These are sports that nobody pays attention to, even when the games are going on. I apologize if that comes off offensively. I'm just trying to be honest. Sports like skeet shooting, weightlifting, trampoline, canoe slalom, and of course, breakdancing are not sports that people watch at any point in the year, ever. I'm willing to bet it's nearly impossible if you even really wanted to. Good luck trying to find handball on television if you're in America. You can win an Olympic medal in these sports, and during the games, you might hear something about it. But the ratings for these sports are not very high, and the majority of the athletes in those sports have not dedicated the majority of their athletic lives to those sports in order to get to the games. That's why every sport I just described doesn't exist in the NCAA, even if the Olympic Committee for Team USA will try to get a group together to send to the games. Which brings us now to Group 3, which is where track and field lands at the moment. The sports that people actually want to watch when the Olympics come around. There are also sports that they don't know much about beyond the games. Along with track and field, swimming and gymnastics have to go down as incredibly popular Olympic sports. And the only way you can actually be good at them is you have to dedicate the majority of your athletic life to success in those sports. Quincy Wilson is proof of this, because even though he's 16 years old and qualified for the Olympics, he's been running track and field since he was a child. He even said himself that he's been winning national championships practically ever since he can remember in his age bracket. Although he clearly is a prodigy, he has put in his 10,000 hours. In every sport that I just mentioned, swimming, gymnastics, and track, do exist at the NCAA, because like I said, in America, that's what makes the sport legit. Heading into Paris this summer, Sha'Carri Richardson wasn't just the reigning world champion in the 100-meter dash. She was also the favorite to win the games in Paris. By now you know that isn't exactly what happened, but you probably aren't even aware that she competed in Florida, then in China twice this year, before going to the Olympic trials and then heading to the games. And she just finished competing in Switzerland. And even though it probably isn't fair to her, it doesn't really matter what she accomplished in any of those other races. The only one that mattered was the Olympic final that she raced in Paris, where she didn't get first. And because she failed to win that event, most fans will never even know that she faced off with Julian Alfred, who beat her in that Olympic final just a few weeks later in Switzerland, and won. That was a professional race that she contested on the Diamond League, which is the most competitive professional circuit that we have in track and field. I cannot be the only one who sees the problem with this picture, that the entire world is glued to their seats when these two women face off in Paris, and when they do it a few weeks later, almost nobody notices. As far as I'm concerned, that is not a problem with the sport of track and field. We know that people like it when they get a chance to watch it. That is a problem with the people who run the sport, specifically at the pro level. A league like the NBA was not always as popular as it is now. In the 1970s, they were dealing with a whole lot of issues that I'm not getting into right now. And by the 80s, they were still airing the NBA Finals on tape delay. You couldn't even watch it live. It was actually the commissioner of the league, David Stern, who had a vision to globalize the NBA game. And in so doing, he figured out that he could make the game more valuable, specifically as a professional product in his league. Of course, Michael Jordan showed up, and he did help the sport with his talent. But it wasn't just his talent, because people weren't showing up to watch Michael Jordan. They were showing up to watch the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan in the uniform. It's the reason why they also showed up to watch the Washington Wizards, even when he was 40 years old, because Michael Jordan was in the uniform. Pro track and field may never get close to NBA level, but it certainly doesn't have to look like this, where there's almost no money in the sport unless you can win a world championship to a lesser degree, but really an Olympic medal. And beyond that, you probably got to get close to, if not break a record when you do. Some of the world's best track and field athletes, like CJ Allen in the 400 hurdles, and Freddie Crittenden in the 110 hurdles, work full-time day jobs while competing as pro track athletes. Remember, these are Olympians, and Crittenden within the 110 hurdles final, so I don't want to hear it. You can make good money in the sport if you're an athlete like Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, or even Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. But all of them are individual gold medalists at the World Championships. For that matter, they all have Olympic gold medals as well. And most of that money wasn't paid to them just for competing. The majority of it is appearances and endorsements and everything else away from the track. But they only get that because of their status as being the best. Competing against them at the American Olympic trials are also some unattached athletes. Those are athletes who have no professional sponsor at all. They pay all their fees in order to go out there and compete. In order to earn their spot at the trials, they do need to record performances. So they basically end up going to what amounts to random meets, normally competing against college kids. At that moment, they don't make money from track and field. They spend money on track and field. The only reason they keep doing it is because they're hoping to break through at the highest level. And that's exactly what happened to miler Eric Holt after the Olympic trials, because he finally signed a professional deal with Puma after years of competing without a deal. I get that people love to watch the Olympics, specifically when track and field is on. But that should tell us something. That they actually do like the sport if you can package it in a way they understand it. The Larry O'Brien Trophy in the NBA is not the same thing as an Olympic gold medal, but I do understand why they give it out and what the players have to do in order to get it. And I definitely couldn't give you the same answer about that trophy they hand out at the Diamond League, at least not without Googling it. So now that the games are over, we have the next 3 years to deal with this problem, because apparently people do like to watch track and field. The ratings in Paris are proof of it. But as long as people don't even know that pro track and field exists without a Netflix docuseries to watch about it, all the races that we get to watch between now and the next games in Los Angeles really aren't going to mean that much at all. In the sport of track and field, confidence is everything, because when you win, that is just the moment when everybody else finds out what you already knew to be true, that fast is a lifestyle. Get your Fast is a Lifestyle track and field gear at scarecruiting.com/shop or use the link in the description below. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.